$100,000 to settle a lawsuit in response to the school's attempt to block a student-organized pro-Palestinian vigil.
Sharon Rouget has been following this story. She's live here with more. Sharon.
Yeah, this is a long time coming, guys. 1 year later after this lawsuit was filed, this is a major win for students, for free speech, especially as the Trump administration seems to be cracking down on universities who allow pro-Palestinian voices.
This might be a major win for students who support Hamas, but this was a settlement and not a legal decision. Nothing has changed regarding the laws about free speech. And as far as Trump goes, he has been responding to anti-Semitism and violence on college campuses.
This lawsuit was filed by CARE, the Council on Islamic Relations, and civil rights group Palestine Legal, for the students who were fighting to express their First Amendment right.
Remember, because she's not going to tell you, together with the Students for Justice in Palestine, these are all very pro-Hamas groups.
That student group, University of Maryland, SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, were planning an interfaith vigil to be held on campus in honor of the tens of thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza, the atrocities they are facing. It was planned for October 7th, 2024, the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel.
Right. How many Palestinians died on October 7th? Because over 1,000 unarmed Israelis were killed, someone might get the idea that this was an honoring of the attack on Israel.
Initially, we're told the university tried to block that vigil from taking place, banning all student-organized events taking place on that day at an abundance of caution. Well, this lawsuit stopped that effort. A judge ruled in favor of this student group. The vigil ended up drawing hundreds of people. It was peaceful. Here's CARE's Maryland director.
Judge Peter J. Messett issued a preliminary injunction allowing the October 7th vigil to proceed. This was not a verdict on the merits of the case, and it did not establish a legal precedent. The only question at that stage was whether the event could go forward while the broader lawsuit played out.
Here's CARE's Maryland director.
In a political climate where many universities, private and public, have been increasingly suppressing students' attempts to be able to gather, even for peaceful vigils, rallies, actions, activities to raise awareness about the injustices that are happening.
Pro-Palestinian students have been given their head all across the country and many times are simply out of control. To talk about injustices on October 7th without mentioning the hundreds of people held hostage or the more than 1,000 unarmed people brutally killed by Hamas is obscene.
This historic victory sets a precedent, an important precedent that signals to universities across the nation that there will be consequences if they try to impinge on those students' rights.
This was a settlement, not a legal decision. The university decided to settle now rather than face a prolonged and expensive court process. On October 1st, 2024, Judge Peter Messett issued a preliminary injunction allowing the October 7 vigil to proceed. But this injunction was temporary and specific only to that event, meaning the broader constitutional issues remained unresolved at that time. This resolution avoided a court's final ruling on the constitutional questions, meaning no formal precedent was set. The university acted over security concerns, not prejudice. Again, this settlement was a cost decision, not a landmark ruling. This was not a sweeping civil liberties breakthrough. The Maryland settlement is not a victory for free speech. It is a win for Hamas supporters to hold their October 7 vigil. Just as a football team winning a game is not a win for the rules book, it is a win for that team. Calling it a victory for free speech makes it sound like it was some broad civil liberties breakthrough, when really it was a targeted win for a cause that most Americans would find morally repugnant. And to remove any doubt that this was a pro-Hamas newscast, WTTG put on the thoroughly discredited, walking hate crime herself, Zainab Chowdhury.
Maryland's Council on American Islamic Relations filed this complaint this week against Dr. Darren Klugman, called for the Hopkins doctor to lose his medical license over these social media posts. In the days after Hamas's October attack, posts from Dr. Klugman's account called Palestinians animals and called for their slaughter. Chowdhury says Hopkins employees flagged the post. The account is now deleted, but in an email from Klugman obtained by WJZ, he allegedly wrote in part, "These messages in no way reflect my beliefs, me as a person, a physician, a friend, or colleague." Johns Hopkins Medicine Thursday said it shares concerns about the social media post. In that statement, its vice president of communications went on to say the faculty member who made these statements has been placed on leave and thus will have no interaction with students or patients while we conduct a thorough investigation.
There are consequences for this kind of rhetoric.
Here in Maryland, critics are calling on a member of the state's Hate Crimes Commission to be removed after a series of Facebook posts about Israel. Paul Kessler reports the Maryland director of the Council of American Islamic Relations says her words were distorted and are distracting people from the loss of life in Gaza.
These are some of the posts from Zainab Chaudhry that have some calling for her to be removed from the state's Hate Crimes Commission.
The people who are using this opportunity to distract from the core issue don't recognize or value Palestinian human lives.
On the day of Hamas's attack in Israel, Chaudhry used the term the uprising in Palestine, and 2 days later referred to Palestinian freedom fighters. Libet specifically referenced Chaudhry's October post comparing Israel to Nazi Germany.
Anytime you start comparing the actions of Israel to Nazi Germany, it's anti-Semitic.
Chaudhry spoke with WJZ last week, calling for a Johns Hopkins doctor to lose his medical license over social media posts calling Palestinians animals. He's now on leave. She says the two cases are very different.
I have a responsibility to speak truth to power and to expose the injustices and the double standards that are existing in our society.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Ms. Chaudhry. In November, you stated, quote, "That moment when you become what you hated the most," in reference to Israel, comparing it to Nazi Germany. Have you retracted those statements?
Thank you, Delegate, for that question. So this was actually a post that was shared by a close friend of mine who herself is Jewish. And I think that in her post, she had drawn parallels between what we're seeing in modern history or modern day and present day in Palestine with Nazi Germany. And I think when that post was shared, that context did not translate over. Since that post was shared, I've had conversations with close friends of mine who are Jewish. And I have actually myself come to understand why that was so painful for the Jewish community. And this has been probably one of the most challenging, but also most enlightening and rewarding moments, in the sense that these conversations have helped me understand and have a better sense of the impact of these parallels and these comparisons for my friends in the Jewish community. And I deeply regret the pain that was caused by that, because that was never the intention by any of these posts. I think what we have to understand is that right now our communities are hurting, and the Palestinian American community across the state, around the country, who I personally have been speaking with, have felt silenced and erased and invisibilized. And so those perspectives are part of the mandate that my organization carries. But thank you for that question. And yes, I have had conversations with friends of mine who've helped me understand the broader context around those posts.
Yeah, I just don't really think I got a clear answer other than no, I have not publicly retracted and apologized for the statements. Thank you.
In a statement, the university stating in part that the university reiterates its support for the First Amendment, and particularly making campus space available for individuals and groups of all viewpoints to share their opinions pursuant to its guidelines for expressive activities and the First Amendment. The university adds that this settlement of $100,000 to the student group was resolved with no admission of liability, and that the Students for Justice in Palestine are in good standing with UMD, holding more than 100 events on campus since 2023. Kenneth?
All right, Sharon, thank you.
If you think WTTG went over the top with their pro-Hamas editorializing, misinforming the public about the nature of the settlement, as well as rehabilitating Zainab Chaudhry and the Students for Justice in Palestine, then please call the station now.